Hi everyone, and welcome to the HeelanHub podcast, the show for small business owners. I'm Dan Heelan, and on today's show, it is just me talking to you about an odd one, really. I want to talk to you about morning routines. Now, I'm probably about, 2 months off the craze that was on Instagram. I don't know if you ever saw this, a guy called, I think his name's Ashton Hall, doing this crazy morning routine where he gets up at 4 a.m. and, rubs his face with bananas and dips his head in water and all this kind of stuff. If you haven't seen it, it was an internet phenomenon for a small period of time, but it got me reflecting on something I talk about quite frequently, which is this look about what's a good daily routine to look at with your business finances. And people often talk about, I want to get closer to my numbers. And it's always like, what does closer mean? And I think there's a few key things you can do with your business numbers that can get you in that swing. And I quite often think actually about launching a 30-day challenge or something like that to do this, because it's quite impactful, I think, over time if you can do this. It's like most things, if you ever tried to get your health together, or you're trying to go to the gym, or anything else you're trying to do, you're probably trying to build little habits and get going. I find those little habits compound over time. And I find this with business finances and when you're looking at it. So let's talk about that. I want to tell you about kind of a framework, I suppose, that we call the 3C, 3G method. And it's having a look through some of the key numbers that we found work well with clients when they're looking to improve their business. So let's get on with it. So one of the cool things about this, I think, is that I picture it of what could you do from bed? So when it's a morning routine, not everybody's a really early morning person. Personally, I love getting up early. I think apart from a few years of my life, I've always got up quite early. I'm quite like about 4 or 4:30 normally is when my alarm goes off. And I love those early hours of the day. I'm rubbish in the evening. I just have no energy after about 4 o'clock. But I do tend to, particularly as we're recording this podcast, it's probably getting on towards 7 maybe. So I do things in the evening, but I find that my energy level to be creative dips quite a lot. And people do different things. I always envy those people that are really great in the evenings and can stay up till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. The only time you'd ever see me do that is probably on gaming on computer or something like that. So generally, I am one of these early people. But as a result, I don't always jump out of bed, and I don't think most people early risers don't. And I'm not suggesting you do a 4:30 routine at all or anything like that. I think the internet's glorified that process. It's not as glorious as it seems. Random backstory with that. The reason I got into doing that is when I had my children. So I've got 3 children. 2 of them are quite a distance from the age of the smaller one. And it was any time in the morning where I could kind of get up before they got up. So I wanted to help my wife who's doing night feed. So I would get up early, do an hour before the baby sort of woke up, and I needed to do the feed. So it just worked around our life, and I've carried on ever since that, even though my 2, one's an adult and the other one's a teenager. The smallest one is now well on his way to being independent. So, but I still carry on this routine now. So I'm not suggesting that this is for you, but whatever you do with your routine, even if you're a 7 o'clock riser, you might not necessarily want to jump out of bed at 7 o'clock. So I liked the idea that the first C we put in this 3C, 3G routine could be done from bed. So that's content. So for me, it's not a surprise you're listening to this on a podcast or watching it over on our YouTube channel at the HeelanHub, or maybe you've watched other videos on our main channel at Heelan Associates, or you've seen us across the various social media platforms. I like doing social media. It's good for business. It's good to educate people. I've told you before that for me, educating people about what they don't teach you in school is really, really important for business owners to make sure they're saving that right amount of tax. So I get excited about it. Now, you might not be as excited about your topic, but hopefully you're out there putting out content for your business. And I think one of the big things is to sit and look at how that content has done. So, and you can do this from your bed in the morning, and it's no hassle, right? Everybody loves scrolling a bit of Instagram or whatever in the morning, but you can go through it and just see how your posts have performed. But I think when you do it, and this is a key thing, is you've got to do it intentionally. You've got to have a look at, what were the impressions? What was the comments? What was the engagement? Was it shown? This is a big one, I think, on Instagram at the moment, was it shown to non-followers? Can we grow out of this post? And if it was good, can we repeat that? What was good about it? What do you think is? Because I think that's the hardest thing quite often with content is you post something that you think is a load of rubbish, does really well, and you post some masterpiece and hardly anyone sees it. So trying to understand behavior and what happens with that is really, really important. And talking to a lot of our marketing strategists who are clients, we deal with a lot of marketers. It's really interesting to hear their thoughts on this. But I don't think anything replaces trial and error. So just trial, have a look and review it. So I think reviewing that social audit in the morning and seeing how your content is done is really, really important. And you can do it while scrolling in bed. Then the next thing that I think is important, and this one's a bit more accountancy, is cash balances. Now, to me, I know it sounds odd, but because we talk a lot in the accounting world about you can't use your cash balance to run your business, you need proper figures, and all those things are technically true. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But at the same time, cash is cash. If you haven't got cash in the bank, then you can't continue the business. So can't continue the business. It's not very good English, is it? But if you've been listening for long enough, that's absolutely not my forte. But you can't continue to carry on your business. So getting an idea of what cash is in that bank's good. And I think the smaller you are, the more important this is, because it really can drive your daily activities. What is also cool is maybe you invoice on invoices. So you send something out and someone pays you, and you want to keep an eye on whether that payment's come in because you've got some work coming up for them and things like this. And you can just see, that person paid. So I remember years ago with one of my side businesses, seeing that payment come in would remind me almost like a CRM, like an internal customer relationship management system, to be like, oh, I actually need to do something for them, or oh, have I spoke to them this month? Not in the accountancy business, this was in a side business. So just think about those things. And I think sometimes gaining that awareness of where you are with your cash and seeing the flow of ins and outs, and also just keeping an idea, particularly when you're kind of a micro business, on what's coming out your bank. Like, were you expecting that thing to come out your bank? As I'm recording this now, my personal bank, they took my AA membership. I was not expecting that, and it upset my spreadsheet. So those kind of things, I think, is something to have a look at. But checking that first thing in the morning, you might decide then to make a different decision in the day. You might decide, I'm going to go and prioritize chasing my invoices, or I'm going to go prioritize sales activity, or I'm going to prioritize my marketing to drive sales and clicks to my website, whatever the case may be. Or I might just be looking at saying, cool, this is good. I can get on with the strategic things, or I can get on with the operations, or maybe I can go to that networking, do whatever you want to do. But having a look at that cash can really set you up for the day. So having done your cash and having done your content, I think those two are quite important things to do. And one's growth focused, one's quite operational focused. And then we want to have a look, talking back at more growth, we want to have a look at customers. Now, you may have heard the term lead and lag indicators, and I think this is quite important, is that you've got a lagging indicator. So your sales figures are a lagging indicator. They've happened after the other things. So the number of leads or inquiries coming into your business is more of a leading indicator, because we know if you don't have any inquiries, you won't have any sales in the long term. You might be doing something right now that's generating sales, but longer term, it's not going to. So if the leads slow down, your sales are likely to slow down. So looking at the number of leads or inquiries, things like that can be really important. If you've got a product business, maybe you're looking at the amount of people that are visiting your web page, how many clicks, that kind of stuff, and looking into those analytics at the back end. And surprise, surprise, I know this, you might be thinking at least, this is quite number heavy, an accountant talking to you about numbers, but how do you know if you're getting better? People often say, oh, yeah, no, we're doing fine. And you dig into it and they don't really know. It's just the result, the lagging indicator is going well. But how do they know? And then you see businesses that slowly drop off. So as we're recording this in the middle of 2025, business is tough for a lot of owners. And we're seeing this slow decline of sales. But the slow decline can be like 25% of sales at the moment. But they haven't really noticed it happening. But if they've been monitoring the front end and seeing the lack of inquiries coming in, they will probably have been able to predict it a little bit earlier. And that's really, really big, is trying to predict that and then deciding what you're going to do about it. And this is a cool thing about being a small business. You're pretty nimble. You can decide to do something different. It might take a bit more time, hassle, and effort than you think, but you can do something about it. So having a look at those 3 C's at the beginning is important. Content, cash, and customers. So having a look at those, then I think you can make the decision then to do what's next. And that's look at your game plan. Now, what I would say with all of this is this isn't something, yes, these kind of things I do frequently. I do run this routine or a very small tweaked version of it, depending what's front of mind at the moment. But we've seen this work with quite a few clients, which is where I'm telling you, it's just a lived experience that clients have had. So if you're thinking, does anyone really do this? They do. And you can see the impact of doing this if you do it. What I love personal habits, as we said. So I like the systemization of knowing that this is what I do in the morning. This is the routine. I'm going to check that content. Then I'm going to flick onto my banking app and have a look at that. So generally it will feel a bit like this. Go through TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, look at the comments, maybe reply to a couple of comments on YouTube. Then I go and check my banking app, have a look at the cash, scroll through the bank balance, just see what's happened in the bank. Might be interesting. And at our size of business, there's a lot of transactions, and sometimes as the owner, I might be slightly further removed than I would have been, say, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, 9, 10 years ago. As the business has grown, you get slightly further removed, you tend to see more top line figures. And sometimes seeing those direct debits can make a big difference. So I will do that. And then I will have a look and just have a look at those lead indicators. We have trackers and CRM systems and things like that to show us what's happening. I'll have a look at Google Analytics to see what's happening. I'll have a look at Calendly to see how many meetings are booked in advance for our sales team, all that kind of stuff. So having a look, and you might just do a different version of that, which is quite important. And then we're going to have a look at game plans. The first G in this is game plan, and that's having a look about how have we done against what we wanted to do. Now, this one can be quite tricky if you've not set any what is known as KPIs, these key performance indicators. But I also want to take that away and say you could have these funky things, KPIs and, all these big numbers, but it could be as simple as you've got a project that you want to make some progress on, or a task that you want to complete this week. And you might have set yourself a few jobs. So it's just spending some quiet time thinking about these numbers or milestones or tasks and thinking, have I moved the needle? Oh no, we're going into corporate speak here, but have I moved the needle? Have I progressed that project? Because quite often an item on a to-do list can feel like quite a big thing. Should be like, deliver this project, or create this slide deck for this presentation, or create this presentation. Creating a presentation isn't just a one task wonder normally. You've probably got to decide on the format. You've got to decide on the content and the copy. You've got to decide on the images. You might need somebody else's review. They're all mini tasks if you wrote them down. So sometimes it's looking at those mini task lists and thinking, have I moved this project forward? If you're interested in more in that, there's an awesome book by David Allen called Getting Things Done, which I still think is the sort of seminal works on productivity and task management. It's actually quite long and boring, but it could be half the size, but it's really, really good. And if you just want to skip that, you can also go find people on the internet that have done YouTube videos basically nicking his concept, putting their own spin on it, and it's the same sort of thing. But this idea of things being a project rather than a task and a to-do is really big for this. But having a look at those, and if you have set KPIs, so you've set certain key numbers like a sales figure or some other metric that you want to have a look at, make sure you're checking those. So like in my instance, I will check sales. We like most good businesses, we will have a revenue target, a sales target, a turnover target, whatever the term you want to use is. And I'll check that in the morning. How did we do yesterday? In fact, I have AI. There's an AI plugin for a tool called Sift Analytics, and it connects to our Xero and it sends me an email every day and says, here we go. That's what you can see. By the way, if you did want a cheap Xero license and you're thinking of getting yourself into some accounting software, you can get heelansssociates.co.uk/Xero and get a ridiculously great discount on that. So do that if you're thinking of that. But yeah, for me, I use tech. I use a workflow to do it. And that's how it's done. And sales is one of my KPIs. Yours, I think sales is one of most people's KPIs, but it might not be as important. And if you think about how do I track these things, sometimes you might have a cool system. I mean, I just told you about my Xero plus Sift idea, but some people just have a spreadsheet. It could be a Google sheet, it could even be a manual book, but that's a bit harder to check maybe from the comfort of your bed if you're going to go down that road with this one. I think for me, when I do this, I've already moved to the computer at this stage. The first three I might do in bed, but then the next ones, the next three, the 3Gs, I'll generally do it at a computer or with an iPad or something like that. And then having done that, I'll then look at, and I said about KPIs. Now for me, the game plan, that was the game plan, it's KPIs, but it's more project based and everything else. The other one is growth, which is exactly the key, which oddly, sometimes they're one and the same. This one is daily sales growth. So I do want to know about, have I sold anything? What does that look like? Was it better than last year? Or if maybe you're more granular, maybe daily sales is important to you. Was this day better than the previous day? Or was this better than the previous year? Something like that. And you can have a look. You might have your own point of sale system, maybe using Shopify or something for your online store, whatever the case may be. Have a look at those kind of things. So yes, the two can cross. You could have a sales KPI in your game plan, but I think normally you're going to check your sales here. Now, on the game plan one, the previous one before, that one to me quite often is more progress on tasks and things that are really important, because once you get, I find, in the building and think about operations, you're then thinking about this customer, this client, how can I package this thing up and get this delivery out today? How can I do this marketing thing? Like there's all these operational things that need to happen. So I think it's quite a nice one from the game plan to sit and just think about what actually will make my business better. If I could just do one thing today, what would that be? Those kind of questions. And then yes, move into your daily sales, daily customer sales, that's your G for growth. And then finally, the sixth one is goals and achievements. And I think it's armed with all the information that you've just got. You might have one goal and just think, have I advanced towards that goal? And should I recognize that I've achieved it? Sometimes I think as business owners, we're rubbish at actually doing that. Because weirdly, the art of achieving the goals, there's always some other goal, isn't there? There's always some next milestone or something to do. But I think having a look at that and just thinking, what are my goals? And again, these three are kind of fluid because you want to look at that with your game plan and think, am I actually moving towards my game plan sort of section? But having a look and just thinking, have I recognized the goal? What are my goals? And people do like to write them down. You've seen plenty of videos, I'm sure, and listened to books and podcasts and writing goals down. But I do think there's a big power in that. Having talked to a lot of owners over these nearly 19 years now, a lot of them will write down their goals and have a good time doing that and do see impact on it. So if that's you and you haven't tried it, try it. But just make sure, I think the biggest thing we see from an impact point of view is trying to write them in the present tense as if you've achieved them. So I have, if it's weight loss, for example, I have lost X stone, and putting a date by whatever the date is. We see a lot of impact from that. And this isn't the kind of, what's that, law of attraction type deal where you write it down, it's just going to happen. But if you're doing this kind of routine every morning and writing those goals down, or at least reviewing them, you're going to continue to kind of build up on that subconscious. I think there's definitely an effort. It's the whole red car idea, isn't it? You don't notice red cars, but when you're looking to buy a red car of a certain type, you'll see them everywhere. Let's say you wanted an Audi TT, you might suddenly start seeing them everywhere when you think about it. And I find that with goals, it's just that idea that you're giving yourself some clarity about what you want, and then trying to hopefully focus down all the things you could do into what's really, really important right now. And again, in terms of tracking it physically, you might have quantifiable financial goals and things like that that are going to fit into one of those numbers that we've done. But also remember to look at more holistic goals. So you might want to see, like, maybe your business wants to be carbon neutral, or you're big into that kind of sustainability world and there's something going on there. So you can do other things. Now, that's the 3G, 3C type idea. So we've got, as a recap, we've got content, cash, customers. Then we've got the more operational sort of KPI and goals driven stuff of game plan, growth and sales. What do we sell? What are we doing to move our key KPIs forward and our key projects and deliverables? And what are our actual goals? And is the game plan aligned with our goals? So that's how that kind of routine works. And then on top of that, when you get to the office normally, there's a couple of things, and I know I've spoke about this on a previous podcast. I like the 15-day part. So the other part of the routine would be 15 minutes spent reading your industry news, business news, or other personal development or training. So I think most business owners quite like learning new skills. So a nice 15-minute YouTube video on a new skill, maybe it is LinkedIn marketing, I don't know, things like that. Learning something new before the day gets going is really cool. And then I think 15 minutes then having a look at, making sure that it is actually in your industry. So you've got that mixture of something cool, something new for 15 minutes and something industry related, and then writing and reviewing those goals we said. And then if you really, really do want to take it to the next level when you get to the office, I'm going to have to say that you should be spending about 15 minutes a day, maybe, on your business finances. That could be either categorizing transactions in your accounting software. Let's say you're in a zero, then you're going to go in there and spend 15 minutes just moving some reconciling some bits, categorizing some stuff. If you've got a bookkeeper, you're going to spend those 15 minutes supplying them those information and just getting an overall. You've already got an overall of some of your key business numbers in the 3C, 3Gs, but then just adding on some news and some training and a 15 minutes spending time in your finance system is going to be really, really good. So that would be, I think, if I combined a load of stuff that worked for clients and has worked for myself over a period, that would be my suggestions. And of course, tweak it around and do your version. And if you do this and you do find you have some success with it, please let us know. And you can do that in a couple of ways. You can either email us, info@heelanassociates.co.uk. That will find its way to me. Or you can go to our podcast YouTube channel at the HeelanHub, and you will go in there and you can comment on this video when it goes live. Currently, we're throwing them out there. We're just seeing if anybody wants to see them live. So it's easy enough for us to stick a camera on while I'm talking into mic. So if you do enjoy those, drop us a comment in there. It's cool to be able to interact with you. And that's it for today's show. So if you've enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe via your favourite app. Most of you find us through Spotify. So if you get a chance, if you can go on there and give us a review if you enjoyed the show, it's really great for our visibility. So thanks for that. If you do want more business insight, tax tips, Dan's chat, whatever else may be the case, we do have a email newsletter that comes out every 2 weeks direct to your inbox. So you can sign up to that. And you can go, if you just go to HeelanAssociates.co.uk, scroll around for 2 seconds, you'll get a pop-up. You can just put literally name and email address in there and you'll get it. We don't pass your data to anybody. It's purely for us. And that's a great way to keep up to date what's going on. You can also connect with me and my great team across all the social media channels, including, of course, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, the lot. We're on them all. Maybe not What's Not. I don't think we've got anything to sell on there at the moment, but we're on most of these things. We're certainly not on Snapchat thinking about it. Anywho, so you can sign up there to our HeelanHub Herald for the newsletter and the social media. Reminder that if you do want to get into the world of cloud accounting, you can go to HeelanAssociates.co.uk/0. So maybe you're on another software and you're fed up with it. One of my teams just spent all day, actually. I'm not going to bang on too much about Sage, but they've spent all day and some of yesterday trying to get into a client's Sage file, which we don't deal with very often. And it frustrates because there's much easier ways. So HeelanAssociates.co.uk/0 to get a great discount there. And if you want to get in touch about the podcast or anything else, you can do so at info@HeelanAssociates.co.uk. That's it. Have a profitable and tax efficient week, and I'll see you on the next one.